The thing about Rosewood Hotel Group is that they're so accepting of everyone who walks through the door, no matter what. When I arrived at the hotel, I didn't speak any English, but I was surrounded by people who believed in me and wanted me to succeed. I started as a kitchen porter and I worked my way up to back of house manager, and I've enjoyed every minute. A few years ago, I was chosen for our Emerging Leaders program. At the time, I didn't think of myself as a leader, but Rosewood saw something in me. I learned about leadership skills, how to motivate your team, how to handle difficult situations. Now, my favorite part of my job is spending time with my team, training them up, and recognizing their hard work. I've worked in every role they have, so I know firsthand what it takes. I've also become the leader of our Rosewood football team. I love being able to spend time with everyone outside of work, to see people opening up to each other and building relationships. When I joined, I was about 20. I was in the mindset that a job is where you go to make money, then leave. I'm completely different now. The moment I stepped through these doors changed me forever. Discover your calling at Rosewood Hotel Group.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very, very good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are tuning in from the world. A very warm welcome to the first Global Perspective Series webcast of 2022 with us here at the Blue Mountains International Hotel Management School and Torrens University. For our webinar today, we obviously acknowledge the traditional custodians throughout Australia, their connections to land, sea and community, and we pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. My name's Gareth and I'm one of the success coaches and industry consultants for our university. And goodness me, aren't we steaming ahead into 2022 with us in March already. As we concluded our series at the end of last year, we focused on various guests from across different regions about the optimism and rebuilding of our industry as we come into the new post-COVID era. That is very much our continued theme in the first quarter of this year. And at the end of the session today, we'll be hosting a Q&A, so please do feel free to insert any questions you may have, and we will get to those at the end of the first chapter. Now, one such organization that has made huge strides globally as of late is Rosewood Hotels and Resorts. With a combined portfolio of more than 44 hotels in 19 countries that is set to rapidly increase over the next few years, with 31 currently in development. This dynamic global brand continues to enhance themselves with what they call the calling. Relationship hospitality being in their genes as they look to deliver meaningful and heartful experiences to their guests, but more importantly, their people. I'm delighted to welcome this afternoon our panel, Mr. Ricky Cheung, who is the Corporate Director of Talent and Culture and Acquisition at the Rosewood Corporate Office in Hong Kong, along from the beautiful beaches in Thailand, where he's been for the last 2 weeks after his recent promotion from Rosewood in London. A very warm welcome home to the virtual Blue Mountain space this afternoon, and that's going to be the hotel manager of the Rosewood Phuket, Mr. Timothy Lee. Gentlemen, a very, very good afternoon.
Afternoon, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much. Lovely to be here.
Super. So, gents, I guess the first question I would really like to ask, and we actually had a lot of students very interested in this in particular at the start of when we started promoting this over the last couple of weeks ago. But you know, I think, Ricky, first question to you. Through the COVID pandemic, our industry has seen many leaders take other avenues. And I think your journey is a very, very interesting one in that you came from the corporate world, previously working with LinkedIn, Goldman Sachs, Deutsche Bank, etc. And in late 2019, took that leap of faith into the world of hotels. So first up, why? And how has that corporate experience enhanced your exposure into the hotel industry?
Yeah, thank you, Gareth. And to be honest, it all started off with my personal encounter with Sonia Cheng, our CEO. So my last job before Rosewood, I was an account manager at LinkedIn, looking after hospitality companies like Marriott, Langham, and Rosewood. So one day, like Sonia messaged me on LinkedIn and saying like, hey, Ricky, I'd like to visit the headquarters of the LinkedIn in California. That was about 3 years ago. And then so I arranged a trip for her to visit the LinkedIn headquarters campus together with the co-founder of LinkedIn, Alan Blue. Through that visit, Sonia asked a lot of questions about how does LinkedIn engages their people, What is the wellness philosophy? How do we motivate our staff? And it dawned on me that for a business CEO, she has such huge interest in people. At that time, like there was no talk about this role whatsoever. And a couple of months later, she sent me another message and inviting me to join her team. And then the rest is history. So I think it's like a living example of relationship hospitality, our founding philosophy that we believe that hospitality springs from nurturing and building relationships and lasting relationship with one another. And the encounter I've had with Sonia made a lasting impact on me and encouraged me to take a new career in hospitality. And my hope is that through our encounter with the students at Blue Mountains today, we'll also inspire and mark the beginning of the relationship with Rosewood.
Yeah, no, for sure, 100%. And I think that, I think that's very much, we talk about, as a careers team, we talk about how networking is such a massive part of our industry. And, from a very casual conversation, one's life can change in an instant. And I think that's a really, really great example. And I mean, being in the corporate office itself, can you give us a kind of quick day in the life overview of what that looks like? Because obviously it's obviously very different, I'm sure, to obviously being a head of HR within a hotel itself, and or indeed in Tim's case in operations with a physical property, etc.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we're trying to do at Rosewood is to get rid of the differentiation between corporate and hotels. To Sonia, she actually sees, every associate as a potential leader of the organization, regardless of which function they are from. Actually, we're rolling out a new MT program next month. That's a revamp program that combines both corporate and hotel experience. So stay tuned to that. But talking about like a day in my life, I think one example I can give. So I'm very fortunate that my job at Rosewood, essentially making Rosewood the coolest employer in town. That includes like recruitment, employer branding, and everything that it takes to make Rosewood the most attractive employer to attract the best talent. So to give you an example, recently, so we are launching a new e-commerce business line to sell lifestyle products. So due to the pandemic, like our guests can't be visiting our hotels physically, but now they can purchase items online, such as Rosewood perfume, Rosewood candles, room amenities, everything that they enjoy from the hotels. Now they can take it home. So in making it a reality, so I have to brainstorm with Sonia and the leadership team, what kind of the key skill set that we are requiring to assemble this team? Where can we find such talent and what makes them click? And doing a terrific job selling them the vision to the candidates so that they would like join our team. At the same time, we're providing opportunities to existing associates as well to upskill them in this area and to provide them exposure for those who are interested in e-commerce so that they can be formed part of the project. So we have seen already great results selling product online from last year as a pilot. We're going to double down that this year.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's just so different and so great to kind of hear kind of a very different kind of dimension to what we would have kind of, I guess, in the trenches, in inverted commas. Speaking of in the trenches, Tim, obviously you've only been in Phuket for a couple of weeks now, and a real change after 7 years with Rosewood previously in London. I know you had a bit of time. We were actually joking about it before, but I know you worked with my dad at the Lanesborough previously for a couple of years as well, so it's a very small world indeed. But now, how are you settling in? And I guess that kind of transition from moving from Europe, from moving from London, and obviously, with what all of London went through with the lockdowns, etc. And I guess, kind of now having the water going through one's toes on a nice hot beach, I guess.
No, thank you. I mean, the transition has been a great experience. So I joined Rosewood's, going on about 7 years ago now. And my journey into Rosewood's was through a relationship hospitality as well. It really was. I arrived to London. I'd been working in mainland China for a few years, and my wife and I arrived to London not knowing anyone in London, no job, no connection, no nothing, and just turned up to London and hoped for the best. And I'd actually met with the Director of Talent and Culture at Rosewood London for a position when I first arrived. We went through the interview process, but at that time, I decided to pursue other options, and I went and worked with your father at the Lanesborough. But through that relationship I had with the Director of Talent and Culture then, we kept in touch. And we kept in touch, and we kept in touch, and we caught up for a coffee, and we chatted about what was happening with the market. And 2.5 years later, an opportunity came up with Rosewood London that I was excited about, and Rosewood London felt I was the right person for. So even though at that first encounter we didn't move forward with the position with Rosewood, I had a great connection with the team there. I had a great started building a relationship with the team there from there. And when that opportunity came up, it was a no-brainer to jump across. So yeah, I joined the Rosewood London team as director of front of house, moved up as director of rooms, and now jumped across here to Rosewood Phuket, which is a huge change. But I would say, despite moving from the European market now into a resort in a foreign country, not speaking the language, the DNA of the resort is still Rosewood. And when you walk around and you see the smile on people's faces, and how we talk about Rosewood culture, how we talk about the calling is the same regardless of which country we're in. So that transition has been relatively easy, really, because I know walking in on the way we all think and how we want to do things, and it's consistent, so it makes it a lot easier.
No, for sure, and I think that's just it. And I think another reason I was really wanting to kind of set us to have this conversation with both, yourself and with Ricky as well, is I think, there's that DNA and that calling. It really just does work so very, very well for you. And it's almost, you call it the secret sauce or whatever you want to call it. But I mean, the recognition, even with, for example, in Vancouver, with the Rosewood over in, Vancouver in Canada, being the #1 property in the city, in the Caribbean region as well, in Bermuda and everything. I mean, it's something that you've got that's really, really right. And I know we're kind of going to touch on it a little bit in a second. But I mean, obviously it has been a turbulent last couple of years. And if you don't mind me, I would like just to kind of touch on COVID and how, as a company across, ASPAC, and I think also, Europe as well, obviously, Tim, from your experience over there as well. And talking about London specifically, Mr. Michael Bonsour, your general manager, who obviously I know is the managing director at the Rosewood in London, in the Evening Standard newspaper in London a couple of weeks ago, he spoke about, in an article which he contributed to, he was speaking about that we are experiencing unprecedented demand from leisure and corporate segments from all around the globe. And there is a real potential for this summer, and summer in the UK, for those that don't know, is not like here in Australia from December. In the UK, if you're lucky, you'll get a week of sunshine, but generally June to September to be one of the best yet. Thailand's strategy as well of opening up the tourism bubbles in Phuket and in the islands around Kamui has seen tourism come back into the country at a really steady rate. And I saw, in the National Thailand tabloid newspaper as well, there were figures of just February alone, 204,000 tourists coming to Thailand, which is a massive, and obviously for a country that relies so heavily on tourism, it's really, really incredible. And I mean, Ricky, and for yourself and the team in Hong Kong, it's obviously in that process of getting on top of the latest wave. And obviously I know with a lot of the 7.5 million residents, working from home at the moment, as I know you're doing at the moment, Ricky. But, I guess kind of the implementations of which Rosewood has really kind of also put their hands up to kind of, say, look, we're here to support our city. And I know that, you've touched on Sonia as well and how heavily involved she is, but those, the new relief and wellbeing initiatives that, the Rosewood Empowers Impact program, lots going on. So it would be, what do you see kind of currently happening in both, Thailand and also within Hong Kong at the moment from the company's perspective? So I might start with Ricky, if I can.
Yeah, of course. I mean, like so as you shared, like the team has been kept busy, and among all the things that we've learned through COVID, I would say the #1 learnings that we've had was around agility. And I think, back in 2-3 years ago, we were one of the first ones to introduce staycation before it was even a thing, and it got super popular. And then we rolled out petcations, and then we have wellcations. So it really prompted us to think quickly, think on the ground, and be able to come up with innovative solutions that it's based on the current developing situation and preempt what the customer demands. And that has served us well from a business perspective. Another thing that we've learned is also to stay true our values, our calling, as you shouted up before. As we aspire to be an impact organization, so when COVID we just started, we created a charity foundation called Rosewood Race, and hotels associates around the world have been initiating donation drives to support the local communities. We opened some of our hotels to host medical professionals, donated food and hygiene items to those who are in need. So the situation is always going to be changing, but what's staying true is what our core beliefs are, and be able to take actions around that front, and that would guide us to be making the right decisions. And that is the approach that we are currently taking, in Hong Kong and the rest of the world now, as we continue to cope with the developing situation.
Yeah. And Tim, for yourself down in Thailand, obviously I'm sure there's a lot of excitement for the team, I guess, getting guests back in the doors, and getting able to kind of start doing some allocations and turning rooms over again, and all that kind of thing, and even I guess even kind of small little shoots of mice and mice functions, mice functions, etc., mice events, etc., coming in, those kind of small shoots. It must be great to kind of getting back to some kind of normality.
Absolutely. I think here in Thailand or even in Europe, that there is absolutely a feeling of positivity in the market, and a positivity in the hotels, in the properties, and with everyone that we speak to. Here in Thailand, for example, occupancy is head and shoulders above where it was last year, obviously, but also above business plan and above budget at the moment as well, because the influx has come back very, very quickly. If we've learned anything, it's that our guests, our core Rosewood guests, really love us, really love our brand, really love what we do, and have stayed connected with us through the lockdowns and through COVID. And when we have opened up and we have been able to take reservations, they've come back exceptionally quickly. So yes, we've got 2 weddings today here on the property. In about 3 weeks' time comes Sokran, which is the Thai New Year. We're expected to be running to 90, almost 100% occupancy during those couple of weeks. And so the levels of business are booming back, absolutely. And that's probably a combination of pre-pandemic, this property probably ran 90% international guests, whereas now it's probably more about 50-50 international guests and Thai guests. So this property in itself has done a significant amount of work connecting with the local community, connecting with people in Thailand, and really promoting the project, the property as a staycation property. And it's really, from a financial point of view as well for the business, has really done exceptional work, because we now have a far wider mix of market to choose from and to come and join us at the property. In London, I spent the lockdown in London, obviously. I spent COVID in London. It was tough. It was very, very difficult. But again, we were incredibly flexible, incredibly agile, and that's what we do so well. So yes, we had to close the doors and we had to say goodbye to our guests, but we continued that connection with the local community. We were doing a significant amount of fundraising for the local children's hospital that we have a relationship with in London. We were cooking for homeless communities around the area. We were running food delivery services, which we'd never done before, from London out of our kitchens. So yes, we're a hotel and we were a property in London, but it was all about connecting locally and being flexible and changing our business style. So instead of running the restaurant, we run a food delivery service, and we can turn that on and turn that off very, very quickly. Yeah, challenging environment, but we've made some great strides through it.
Yeah. Speaking of Phuket, a number of my friends have opted to go to like Phuket or Bangkok to work for a couple of months, as remote working becomes a more convenient in Hong Kong. And I mentioned to Gareth before that one of the biggest perk at working at Rosewood is that we have 12 free hotel nights at any Rosewood hotels around the world. So this is definitely top of my list. And actually, I should send him a message afterwards to see if we can make that happen.
Not in April. We're full.
And I think that, gents, I think that's really, really great to hear. I mean, there's this hearing that optimism and so forth is just so exciting. And I know, we've have, you know, our student intakes are, it's really exciting to see how much excitement there is from, you know, those wanting to get into the industry as well. And, you know, our forecasted numbers with us at Blue Mountains are both our undergraduate and postgraduate campuses across all 4 campuses in Australia. Our numbers are coming back really, really strongly, which is not only exciting for us as a lecturing and a careers community, but I think as well, it's also very exciting for our industry partners to hear that as well, because, you know, we've had obviously a lot of with everything that's happened and those hesitancies, but I think, you know, seeing the optimism that's coming from leaders such as yourself, it just ignites that passion even more so. And I know, you know, Ricky, you've mentioned Sonia a couple of times already, and it kind of leads me quite nicely into my next point and question that I was going to ask. But, you know, obviously she's very active on social media, particularly on LinkedIn. And for those that haven't followed her on LinkedIn or seen any of her articles, I would very much encourage you to do that. You know, as the Rosewood CEO, you know, very much in her own right, she's an extraordinary woman within the hospitality world. And, you know, I again, when I was kind of researching for things for us to talk about, I found an article in the Financial Times back in early 2019 where she spoke about that nowadays it's not about what you see, but an intuitive approach to service. And in a way, I guess that actually sums up a very truthful and honest synopsis of what we are all thinking now as we come out of COVID, in that with that mind and the roadmap that, you know, yourselves as a company has laid out ahead. And I think as our industry has done as a whole, you know, yes, having that roadmap is all in good stead, but it also comes back to the leadership as well. And I guess what shifts, changes in, and I'm probably going to start with employee preferences first. What kind of employee shift changes have you noticed, and the confidence being noticed around that? And what are your own key learnings, I guess? And I'm probably going to split the question in two, where I might ask Ricky about from your people perspective, but I think maybe Tim as well to talk about, you know, what shift changes guests' experiences have been, and again, of course, you know, talking from your time in London as well, etc. It would be really kind of good to get both of those insights from both of them, and how your leadership has changed in that regard. So I might start with first.
Absolutely. So starting with the employee side, I think, like, well, first of all, it's been incredible, like, working with Sonia as a visionary leader. Actually, we just celebrated International Women's Day yesterday, and then we're like huge, like, global campaign, like celebrating all associates at Rosewood who have brought in like incredible achievement, and also like people who have supported the career as well. The reason why I brought it up and a few times, I think she really sets the tone from the top. In terms of how she puts employees first. First of all, we changed our department from HR to talent and culture 2 years ago. That's a reflection of the importance put on both talent and culture in things that we do. We've also rolled out the Calling, as you mentioned, which is a campaign that took us 2 years in making, asking people around the world why they join Rosewood, what makes them stay, and really come up with this idea of it really is in our DNA that we aspire to enrich the lives of one another, inspire one another as well. And as a result of that, I think one thing that really stood out is a core value that's calling discovering the uncharted, which means that, you know, just because something's done a certain way in the past does not mean the same thing has to be in the future. And Sonia and the leadership team is always challenging us, you know, how to do things differently and learning from the best practices outside. And to be honest, I think this, as our company continue to grow and evolve, like this is, and we bring in people from different sectors and backgrounds, this is the expectations that they have of us as well, that we need to be an innovative organization, that we need to have the system in place to support innovation being brought in. And we need to have transparent communication. So one of the things we did was, since last year, we launched a new app called Insider, which is for the very first time, every one of our employees, so 10,000 of us globally, we're able to, like, through this app, directly communicate with our CEO and the leadership team, hear from them stories, and have direct download of what's happening in the business. So these are all some of the changes we've brought in through technology in order to respond to what employees are looking for and delivering a better experience for all.
then I guess from my side, so I wouldn't say that the pandemic COVID has changed leadership styles. I think what was fundamentally strong being a leader and looking after your team pre-pandemic is still there post-pandemic, and everything is correct. I think the pandemic did give us opportunity to sit back and reassess, as Ricky said, and really look at what we were doing. It gave us time as well to look back and evaluate, what we were doing, how we're doing things, and how can we innovate and move forward. So it did give us a stopgap opportunity to really reassess what we're doing and try and change things for the better. I think what it's brought to light, the pandemic, more than anything, and again, we knew this beforehand, but I think is more important than ever, is the ability to look after ourselves and look after each other. So mental health and mental wellness has been an incredibly strong topic of the pre-pandemic, but during the pandemic and now post, it's on everyone's lips and everyone's associates' lips as well. We all have to look after ourselves, absolutely, first and foremost. And if you're looking after yourself mentally and physically, then you can look after your teams as well. So, even today, this afternoon, right? It's now 11:30 here in Phuket. At 5 o'clock this afternoon, the leadership team at Rosewood Phuket, plus the associates that are available, we're going for a walk along the beach. We're doing a bit of a beach cleanup. And we're just going to go for a walk and walk along the beach, tidy up as we go, and really take 20 minutes out of our day for that mental health and that wellness, just to be outside, de-stress for a minute and have a conversation with each other. So I think, although it was there pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, that understanding of our associates, that understanding that you need to be mentally fit as well to be a strong leader is incredibly important, and one that I've taken on hand absolutely since.
And with a magical sunset in the background, just to top it all off for you as well. So
it helps to have a beach nearby.
Really selling it. That's amazing, and I think that's what's really, really exciting for all of our students to hear. Is that it is about it is just so much more about the people and that connection with your colleagues. And I know that even for myself, here in Melbourne, obviously with our 265 days or whatever it was, we did have lockdown in the end over the last 2 years, but I mean, that connection with people was something that we really, really missed. And I think that it's something that is so important in our industry, of not just connecting with the guests throughout the shift, but it's actually more important with those that you connect alongside of you. And in many cities in the world, I think you can argue, I will always say that in working within a hotel, you actually end up having more time spending with your colleagues than you do with your wife and your kids and that kind of thing. And that work colleagues environment actually becomes a family space, and that's what is so important. And I know it's something that's we've missed incredibly. I'm conscious of time. I know we're at 3:30 already, but there is one last question I just did want to ask you both as well. And in that, can the students that were, as I said earlier on, we've obviously, there has been some hesitancy with those coming into the industry right now, and obviously Australia is bouncing back very, very strongly. And I think with even hearing about with what you've both shared with us today and with what Rosewood is doing within the region at the moment, it's incredibly exciting. But I mean, Ricky, as Sonia is, I know you're very active on LinkedIn as well, with a lot of articles that you've also shared over the last couple of months and so forth. And one article in particular that you wrote about, I thought was very, very interesting. And it was about how, in regards to companies outside of hotels, 10 reasons why companies should hire hospitality students, even if you're not in hospitality. So I guess that article, I know it was actually showing about how these people our people in this industry, how they are so diverse that they can really go anywhere. And I guess why you believe that hospitality, hotel management continues to provide an exciting, rewarding career. So I think that would be the first question that I would ask you. And Tim, I would also say as well, from an alumni perspective, and obviously from somebody that's been up in Lura, has done the placements, has done the internships, and then obviously transitioned into working with Hyatt across Australia and up into China before obviously heading across to London with what you shared earlier. But some have shared with their lecturers about the apprehensions. But what would you say to those that are about to graduate from Blue Mountains and from Torrens University Hospitality at William Blue Dining, etc.? And basically those who are wanting to know that the sky being the limit, that it's still possible, basically. So I might start with Tim first.
Okay. So I think as an industry now, as of the 9th of March, is an exceptionally exciting place. Opportunities. Yes, obviously the pandemic was tough for everyone, tough for every business globally, and tough for all opportunities around. But I think globally now everyone is coming out of it, and the opportunities now that are out there are significant. Every property I'm aware of in Europe, every property here in Thailand is looking for the right people. Gareth, you mentioned earlier about the change in probably customer expectations, I suppose, and it's true. Our guests that are traveling now, there's not as many of them, but those that are traveling are wanting to travel and wanting to have special experiences. They're willing to pay for it. Average rates across the company are significantly higher than they were pre-pandemic. So guests are willing to pay for experiences, but they now want to have more than ever something special. So if we can find the right people, if we can find people that have a true calling for the industry, if we can find people that have the know-how, that have the drive, have the ambition, have the passion, that want to be creative, want to have ideas, this is what our guests are looking for now. And these are the sort of people that we're looking for across the board. So anyone graduating now, I think it actually is in an enviable position for sure, because there really is, I think if you wanted to work in London, if you wanted to work in Thailand, you wanted to work in North America, you wanted to work in China, you could pick up the phone and there will be plenty of people wanting to speak to you. Yeah, it is a really, really exciting time in the industry. And look, we're hiring here in Phuket as well. I guess, suppose, just from my experience from as an alumni, as a graduate, yes, coming across and I went through the training program with Hyatt in Perth, and then into mainland China, and then over to London. I think anything that you can do in regards of these sort of calls. I know actually once it was announced that I was on this call, my LinkedIn invitations jumped dramatically in the last 24 hours.
My bad.
But that's the sort of stuff you need to be doing. You need to be bold. You need to be putting your name forward. You need to be ambitious. Reach out and have those conversations, because that's what we're looking for sure. Super.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Ricky, to talking about how these exciting opportunities and how it's such a rewarding career to still come into.
Exactly. So, well, thanks for calling out the LinkedIn article. And for those of us on the call who are, if you're going for an interview, I would definitely encourage you to check out the article and steal, copy, take all the keywords from there, because that really was a heartfelt piece that I wrote, having been in different industries in finance and tech and now hospitality, that I truly believe that hospitality students are a great catch. They think on the feet, they're great communicators, they preempt like customer demands, and they have so many great soft skills and hard skills, which are relevant to so many industries. So, I mean, that's a good thing for us at Rosewood as well, because we're in a hyper growth mode. We are currently at 10,000 people globally, 40 plus hotels. We're projecting to add another 10,000 in the next 3 years. We're opening like hotels like left, right, and center in Munich, in Amsterdam, in Sao Paulo. So there's so many opportunities out there. At the same time, the company is evolving to beyond hospitality. So our goal is to become a luxury lifestyle icon. So I mentioned to you about e-commerce, our wellness concept. It's going to be rolled out globally. Our residence business is doing extremely well. So that means like as a company, we have something for everyone. So just like last year, we're building up the data team from scratch. We're building the CRM team, and we're going out to technology universities to talk about Rosewood. And that's also prompted us because now our competitors are no longer just other hotel players in the market. We are competing with the Goldman Sachs, the Apple, LVMH for top talent, which prompted us to, up our game and also providing a better employee experience. Well, I think it's like super exciting. And for people who are working at Rosewood right now as well, that also presents them with opportunities to expand their skill set. Because in the past, sales and marketing done in the past is very different from how it's done now. Everyone plays Instagram, but how to sell things on Instagram is a different skill set. So therefore, we also ramped up our development academy programs since last year. We also attract people from different industries and background as well, which makes it, I think, a much more exciting and complex ecosystem to be working with Rosewood.
No, that's super. No, a really, really good, really, really awesome insight, Ricky and Timothy, from both of you. We've actually got one of our students, Selena, who's actually on the call today as well. And Selena's actually just, she started her course with us, but actually previously she was actually working at the New World Hotel down in Wuhan. And she said that she's, after her degree, I'm sure it sounds like she's pretty keen to be jumping back into the Rosewood family, that's for sure. So I'll give Selena a bit of a shout out, and no, that's really, really super to hear. So I'm going to open the questions up to the floor now. And the first one I've actually got is actually coming from our program director for our masters, for our postgraduate program. So Dr. Emma Wong, who's based up in Sydney, she has a question in regards for Ricky around that. Based on your observations of recent graduates that you've had joining your hotels, and obviously across Asia Pacific, and even from, I know obviously Rosewood does a lot with the schools in Switzerland, etc. Are there any skills, qualities that you would like to see improved or strengthened among those graduates? I think for Tim, from an operations perspective, probably as well, with applied training and stuff, we could definitely tie that in to you as well. So, what, based on your observations of recent graduates joining the hotels, are there any skills, qualities that you would like to see improved or strengthened among those young people coming into the industry?
Tim, feel free to jump in. I think that from my perspective, I would turn this question around in terms of what can we do in terms of providing additional exposure that can better leverage the interest and the skill set that the students are bringing to Rosewood, which is not on the typical CVs. And what I meant is that, what we found out from recent graduates is that many of them are very interested in two areas in particular, in sustainability and also in social impact. Traditional job setup do not have a particular role for these aspects, but we find that as we're interviewing, as we're seeing the graduates coming to the team, they're bringing a lot of fresh ideas and in fact, challenging us sometimes in terms of what we are doing in this regard. So therefore, in terms of our job scope, at least for the upcoming MT batch, one of the changes that we did to the management trainee is that in addition to the functions that they are going to be rotated across, they will be tagged along to the hotel managing directors throughout the entire management training program. And they'll be working directly with the MDs on sustainability and social impact projects. So that gives them, basically to sit in the table to help be from the MD's point of view to help out work with the different industry functions, which you find it's something that the MDs really enjoy, and they bring a lot more to what originally was, defined. So I think that has been a really good innovation that we brought in, and actually leveraging the additional skill set from the students.
From my point of view, I would echo exactly what Ricky's saying. I think that what we can see now is that, people are coming in looking for a work environment or connecting with a company culture that they actually do connect with. They're not just looking for a job, and they're looking for something that has some ethics behind it, something that has a goal behind it, a company that has a culture that works. And I think that we as a hotel company, or we as a brand, or we as individual hotels would like to see that those associates that are coming into the business to really voice their passions and really talk about what they're they want to see in the business and want to talk and what they want to see in a work environment. Because as we talk about with the calling, it's about, your real call to the industry. And if you have a passion for something, you're gonna give 100% for it. So what we'd like to see is, if you're coming into the business and there's traditional inroads into the business, right, in front office or in food and beverages, wage or whatever else, but that job role doesn't define you. And if you have a scope and want to get involved in other areas of the business, and if you have an interest in the sustainability or the wellness, or you have an interest in, I don't know, you're an Instagram master and want to get involved in communications, those opportunities are there now, but people need to be vocal and people need to be talk about it and put your hand up and say, I want to be involved in this. I want to get involved in this. So the more that you can have an open conversation with your leaders and with your managing director or something like that, it's better for everyone involved.
No, that's great. No, really, really good insight from you both for sure. And I think, it's sustainability and things like that are things that we don't think about. And I think that understanding of how much of a bigger the picture really is, it just really enhances all of those future leaders coming through those programs with Rosewood, etc., to be even more enhanced in there. We've got time for one more question, which actually comes from one of our students, Kim. So Kim is having an interview with the Meridian tomorrow in Sydney, and she's basically asking about, if you could share some tips on what is it that when you ask, I think she's trying to get an idea of questions that you would ask. So I think she's doing a bit of a fishing pitch there to see if she gets asked the same things tomorrow. But if you could share some tips on how to be successful within that interview tomorrow, what are the key things as a hotel manager and also as obviously working as a corporate HR director or a T&C director as well? What advice would you give to that person walking into a frontline interview if they were to go in there tomorrow? And what tips would you say that they definitely need to meet in those first kind of half an hour of that interview? So Tim, I might ask you first. Sure.
I will. There's probably a couple of key elements in there, and some I'll give some very practical advice and some probably a bit of theory, I suppose. Very practical advice is walk in there with confidence. Walk in, shake hands, say hello, present yourself well, stand tall, and present yourself that you're meant to be there, I suppose, is the first and foremost. From there on, it really needs to be about, of course, skills and knowledge are very, very important, and skills in that role or skills in that position that you're looking for, of course, are very, very important. But really, when I'm interviewing someone, especially at my level now, I really don't talk anything about the actual job role itself, because other people will have asked those questions already. But as we've talked about, really, it's about I'm looking for people that connect with the culture. I'm looking for people that connect with the brand. I'm looking for people that connect with the ethos of Rosewood. So do a bit of research about the philosophy, do a bit of research about the company, understand the culture of the property, and bring that into your conversation as well, because we're looking for people that that connect with the brand, connect with the company, connect with what we talk about on a daily basis. Because if what we do doesn't interest you, or what our company culture is that doesn't interest you, well, it's not going to be a successful relationship.
As for me, I like asking people what their calling is. So and that shows whether they have done the research, and also, calling is so integral to our organization culture. So I really want to learn about the person's calling. And the second piece is echoing what Tim says, do the research. I always ask people why are they interested in Rosewood and why are they interested in this role? And if their answers can be replicated for Four Seasons, for Ritz-Carlton, for Marriott, and so on, then that's not unique. It's not the unique stories. So I highly encourage them to come up with their own personal story why they would aspire to join this role. And don't be afraid to bring in things that are non-conventional and that is true about you, that might not be exactly on the job description. Like, I remember spending time with one of the candidates talking full hour about NFTs, about how he's like super passionate about metaverse, and we had a good chat about how that might impact the future of the hospitality. I don't like whether he's going to go through the other interviews for other rounds of assessment, but at least coming from that interview, I had a very strong impression of the candidate. So don't be afraid to stand out and come up with your personal story.
Well, you've heard it there, Kim, from two of the highest leaders in Rosewood's organizations. Take that with you into the interview tomorrow. So, no, gentlemen, I know we've gone 2 minutes over time, but a huge thank you to you both this afternoon. It's been a really, really great session, and it's been lovely, I think, to also allow the opportunity for our students to hear more about Rosewood as an organization as well. We hope there's an opportunity of welcoming you to Australia in the future, be that in a form of a potential development that could be happening. But Timothy as well, no, I'm sure you'll be looking to get home at some point as well. So if you're either in Melbourne or even up in the mountains, etc., I know the Blue Mountains family would love to welcome you back and so forth as well. But no, Ricky and Tim, thank you very, very much for your time this afternoon to you both.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure.
Wonderful. So, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our first Global Perspective Series episode of the year. We do have a short video from the Rosewood team as well that we would like to share, but we wish you all a very, very pleasant end to the week as well. And we look forward to seeing you all very, very soon. Take care, everybody.
I joined Rosewood Hotel Group because I wanted a change in my life. I was ready for the next step. I could see Rosewood could provide that, and they did. I've had so many incredible opportunities here. I've completed management training, and now I run my own team. I've also had the opportunity to see how creative I truly am. Before I was a junior chef, I never thought I'd be good at pastries. I never knew I had that skill within me, and I found it here. I'm so grateful for that. That's why for me, every day at work is magical. There's always room to be creative, to collaborate, to learn and to teach others. We don't do the same thing every day. Naturally, it's all about the attention to detail for our guests, but we have the chance to do things our own special way. And I know there's still so far for me to go to keep making my dreams a reality. Now, when I travel, I'm always looking for the best places to eat, the best local produce. I never used to be like that. I feel like I've become a true chef. At other hotels, this would just be a job. At Rosewood Hotel Group, it's a career. Discover your calling at Rosewood Hotel Group.